public speaking is considered the number one fear. Something like 42% of people report being nervous of public speaking. Now, so if we calm your nervous system first, just imagine like you're calmer. You can think. Wouldn't you like to sound like a human being? A competent human being that knows what she's talking about? Welcome to the She Speaks to Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Julia Kraft, your authentic expression mentor and public speaking coach. She Speaks to Inspire is an empowering public speaking podcast for women with public speaking fear. Unlike other podcasts on public speaking, She Speaks to Inspire not only gives you tips to be a confident communicator under pressure, but also helps you regulate your nervous system for less anxiety, learn lifestyle practices to reduce burnout and overwhelm, and reconnect with your feminine leadership presence for more authenticity and comfort in your skin. I believe it's the quiet ones, especially the quiet women, who have the most important ideas. I believe the world really does need your voice. So let's dive in. Hey there, it's your mentor, Julia, and I'm excited to dig into my main topic. This is the topic I am all about: how to reduce speaking anxiety without scripts or rehearsing. I have spent the last 20 years of my life studying this and working with thousands of professionals, men and women, in recent years mostly women, to help them feel more calm and confident, comfortable in their own skin, centered when they're in the spotlight, under pressure, and in those high stakes moments that really, get under your skin. My hypothesis, my perspective is that you can be calm and confident, even in high stakes moments, without scripts and without rehearsing. Let's talk about it. I remember about 10 years ago, my name was introduced in front of an audience of about 100 people. The audience started clapping, and it was my time to walk onto stage. I walked up the few stairs, planted myself center stage in the spotlight, turned to face the audience, and it was like a brick hit me in the head. As soon as I turned, as soon as they quieted down with their clapping and the room went quiet, there was this thickness that came into the air, and I felt the pressure to be good, the pressure to know what I wanted to say, the pressure to entertain them, the pressure to look good, the pressure of all their judgments on me, or what I perceived as their judgment. How did my body react? I started to have heart palpitations immediately. My breathing basically stopped, like big lump in my throat. My eyes, I could feel, got really big and frozen. And my sweat, oh my gosh, I was sweating out of every pore in my body. I felt it dripping down my back. I was probably sweating through my dress at this point. Lovely. I stumbled over those few words. I remember that. And then I beat myself up in my mind. Oh, you stupid. Yeah, you shouldn't have done, all these thoughts. I stumbled through that whole presentation. It was about 10 minutes. I got some words out, but it did not feel good. And it did not go well in terms of the results that I was hoping for. As an entrepreneur, I was hoping for signups for the thing that I was inviting people to, and I didn't get any. Huge bummer, huge embarrassment. This was an imprint moment for me around speaking, and was a big wake-up call that I needed to learn how to regulate my own nervous system, even when there was a lot of pressure. And I needed to learn how to trust myself. Perhaps you can relate to this story, elements of it, whether it's the symptoms, maybe you've experienced something similar, or some of the thoughts. This is a classic example of performance anxiety, speaking fear, public speaking nerves. It's really common. Maybe you think it's just you, but I'm here to tell you that it's really common. I've worked with thousands of people around their speaking, and every single one of them tells me they get nervous. In fact, if you look at some data that's been done by scientists and researchers, public speaking is considered the number one fear. Something like 42% of people report being nervous of public speaking. Now, I think if you really sat people down and asked about the level of their nerves, that'd be 100% of people get nervous. They have some sort of, adrenaline response to public speaking or being in front of a group having to communicate. It's a sort of natural human response and an uncomfortable experience for us humans. With all that in mind, it's important for you to understand, as somebody who wants to feel more confident as a communicator and be able to trust yourself to be confident as a speaker, why you're experiencing anxiety. I want you to understand why. When I heard what I'm about to tell you, it was like this light bulb went off. I'm like, oh, that's it. Of course, that's what's been happening all of these years. It gave me a foothold into how I can help myself and started to open up a possibility that I could actually feel better around speaking, that I could actually be successful, that this could no longer hold me back or be so uncomfortable. Now I fully embrace the fact that it's 100% possible for everyone I work with to feel better about speaking. Absolutely. To feel confident, calm, centered, it's 100% possible. But first, you have to understand this. The experience of being in front of a group, whether that group is 3 people, 10 people, 50, 100, 10,000, doesn't matter. The experience of being in front of a group triggers our nervous system. And each person, how it triggers it is very unique. That's something I would put aside to get into when we're doing one-on-one coaching. But for now, let's just talk about the general trigger, that your nervous system is triggered. And when I say nervous system, what I mean is the part of your body that has a primal alert system or alarm system to let you know when you're unsafe, when there's something in the environment that's a threat. This is the system that we have in our bodies, our primal animal, mammal bodies, to let us know when we're not safe. Now, of course, our frontal cortex as humans makes us much more complex than, say, an antelope on the safari, but it's the same basic mechanism. The antelope or the gazelle perceives some movement in the bushes and its ears perk up. It becomes hyper vigilant and alert to the potential of a threat. And then as soon as it sees those lion's eyes or those tiger's eyes and sees the tiger starting to move towards it, what happens? The gazelle starts to run. There's a flight response. Yeah, back to you. There's 3 levels of your nervous system that you move through in response to a threat, whether it's public speaking or anything else. If you can understand and learn to work with each of these 3 levels, you will have mastery over your response to stress. The first level of your nervous system I want to highlight is called stay and play mode, which actually we don't need to get into too much because this is the normal state of your nervous system day to day. This is where we would love to be while we're speaking, right? Where we're calm, you're having a conversation with your husband, your girlfriend, your children. You're just, you're in your relaxed state of mind and you think clearly. There's ideas that come to you, words come out of your mouth, it just flows, right? You don't think about it. Stay and play mode. Yeah, I'm there, I'm going to play. As soon as you perceive a threat, like that movement in the bushes or those eyes of the audience looking at you, the first level your nervous system goes into is fight mode. It's a hypervigilant state where blood rushes to the muscles to fight back against a threat. Now think of a public speaking situation. Does it make sense to fight back against the threat of the audience? To start punching people or yelling or, No, it doesn't make any sense. It's so socially inappropriate. So pretty much everybody jumps right over the fight response and they go to the next level, which is the flight response, the desire to flee the situation and get away. Which makes more sense in terms of public speaking, that I want to run off the stage. I want to avoid this situation as much as I can. We humans can get very creative in how we flee situations. I've heard stories of women turning off their Zoom, ending the meeting, and then sending a message, technical difficulties, just to avoid it. I've heard stories of women deferring to their boss or their colleague at the last minute, calling in sick, anything. There's lots of ways that you might avoid it, even down to there you are, you have to speak, you can't get away from it. And so your body just turns to the side and sort of curls inwards. I'm doing it right now. You can't see me, but this sense of my body collapses so that I can subtly run away and avoid. Even though I am there, people are seeing me, there's really no way to avoid it. but it makes me feel like I'm getting away from this uncomfortable situation. If you can't fully flee, which with public speaking, if you're in front of an audience, there's no way you can fully flee. You will eventually end up in freeze response, some degree of freeze response, which is the next level of the nervous system. And freeze response is a physiological way that our body has found to manage the intensity of stress. In some situations, like around trauma, they call it shock, right? Where the body just goes into shock and shuts down, and you don't really feel much until later, sometimes much later, when things are calmer, safer, quieter. In terms of speaking, this will often look like a tight body that just gets tense and stuck. The eyes will get a little bulgy or glazed over. If you have a script, you're just reading it, you sound robotic. You might be talking fast, trying to get this over with as fast as possible. You're barely breathing. You might even feel like you're blacking out, like, what just happened? I can't remember what just happened. This is incredibly common, like crazy common, and we don't talk about it. And you're probably just suffering through it all by yourself. I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be that way, and that this has been a strategy for you to manage speaking fear for a long time, but there is another way. So now you know the 3 levels of the nervous system: fight, flight, and freeze. Hopefully you can recognize yourself in one or many of these different levels and see how that shows up for you. Now, the key is, as we get into the 3 steps to reduce speaking anxiety, step number 1 is calm your nervous system. That's step number 1. How can you calm your nervous system? There's a lot to this, which is what I teach in my programs, but I want to highlight that this is step number 1. Before you learn fancy public speaking skills, before you craft your content and make the most beautiful PowerPoint presentation, you must work with your nervous system, the fear and the anxiety itself, because that fear and anxiety is sabotaging your ability to implement any of the public speaking or communication skills you might have learned, or to access the inherent expertise you have on the topic you've been asked to speak on. You've been asked to speak, you've been invited to share your perspective because other people see the value of what you have to offer. That's the truth. But there's no way you can access that expertise if you're caught up in fight, flight, and freeze. It's very, very difficult. So step number 1 is learn to calm your nervous system. I go into this more in my free training on my website, so I'll leave that for you to go watch when you have a moment. Things like deep breathing, things like relaxation techniques, things like somatic practices, as well as self-care and lifestyle practices that support your nervous system are all part of how you will start to actually feel calmer and be able to make conscious choices. We want to keep you out of freeze response. That's the most stressful. And then we want to learn to work with the energy of flight, that like buzzing feeling of, I want to get away. Work with that. Keep you out of fight response too. We're going to relax the muscles and keep you as much in that stay and play mode as we can. That's the goal. Okay, so that's step number 1, calm your nervous system. Step number 2, to reduce speaking anxiety. This might surprise you. It's to master improvisation, to let go of scripts and master improvisations. Maybe scripts have been your strategy. You're in the freeze response. You can barely think straight. So of course, you want to plan out what to say because you're not going to be able to think. I get that. So if we calm your nervous system first, just imagine like you're calmer. You can think. Wouldn't you like to sound like yourself? Wouldn't you like to sound like a human being? A competent human being that knows what she's talking about? Absolutely, right? Now here's the thing. Improvisation isn't about just winging it, hoping you say something good. No. Good improvisation uses structure to organize your thoughts on the fly in the moment, and then to be connected to the audience in the moment so that the way you say what you wanted to say is always going to be different than you could have planned or could have expected, because in this particular live human moment, that's how it needed to be said. And you can trust that. So number 2, master improvisation. Learn structures that help you organize your thoughts and then practice them and practice this mindset of being in the moment. The last step, which brings it all together, is number 3, nonverbal communication. Mastering confident nonverbal communication. This is an art and a lifelong study. A lot of public speaking trainings put this first, actually. They're going to teach you what to do with your hands, where to look, how to use your eye contact, facial expressions, moving on stage. They're going to teach you all of that. It's really good skills to know, and I can teach them all to you. But if you start with that, again, your nervous system, if it's stuck in freeze mode, is not going to be able to implement it. There's no way you can be aware of your body and do something different with your eyes if you're stuck in flight or freeze response. Also, when the nervous system is in that kind of activation, there's a lot of self-criticism and beating yourself up and maybe even perfectionism. So if I tell you to move your eyes a certain way or use your hands in a certain way, it's very easy to internalize that you've been doing something wrong and then try to get it right and be perfect. And that's not what we're going for either. Effective nonverbal communication is connected to your improvisation in that it's congruent with what you're saying. Your hands are moving naturally with what you're saying, just like you would if you were talking to your husband or your girlfriend or, whatever. You're just flowing, right? Your body moves with it. Your spine is lifted, your chest is open in a confident posture because you feel confident, right? Because you're relaxed and confident. So there's a lot to learn with nonverbals. And again, we can only really get there and implement effective public speaking nonverbal communication if your nervous system is calm and you've loosened your grip on scripts so you can improvise. Again, I'll leave this for the free training that you're going to go watch on my website because I go into more details about nonverbal communication, but I hope this was a good just intro to everything. Step number 1 to get rid of speaking anxiety is to master calming your nerves. Step number 2 is learn improvisation skills, specifically learn structures and practice them. 3, explore nonverbal communication, best practices, and get feedback on what you're actually doing with your body, how it's coming across, how it's being perceived. That's really, really important. And that's a big part of what I provide in my coaching. These are the fast track to calm, confident communication. I've taught hundreds of group public speaking trainings for other public speaking training companies. So separate from the work that I do with my own business. Years ago, I taught for other public speaking training companies. And they don't follow this progression. They actually do it in reverse. I started teaching this order: calm nerves, master improvisation, master nonverbals, and I saw really quick results with my clients. They barely even needed to learn a bunch of best practices about public speaking because they just felt confident. It wasn't a big deal. They just started doing the things. So it's a little bit more of an inside out perspective, and yet it really works. It really works for the kind of speakers that I work with, which are, that speaking is a lifestyle. You have meetings a few times a day or a few times a week, that big meeting once a quarter. It's just part of your life that you need to be more confident. You need to be more relaxed. You need to be able to flow with the moment and not be so worried about getting the words perfect, right? If you want to learn more about this, head over to my website, speaktoinspire.com, register for the free training. And if it feels like a good fit to you, make sure to schedule a call with me. Let's have a Inspire session call where we'll explore your unique situation and what program could be a fit for you. Go out into the world, speak to inspire. Thanks for joining me for the podcast. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening. This has been She Speaks to Inspire with Julia Kraft, your authentic expression mentor and public speaking coach. I'm so glad you joined me. And I hope you got so much out of this episode. If you want to learn more about Speak to Inspire training programs and get inspired, head over to speaktoinspire.com or follow us on Instagram at She Speaks to Inspire. Never forget, the world needs your voice, and it's time for you to speak to inspire. See you in the next episode.